What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome back to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursday. I have 3 envelopes I'm going to share with you today. Hopefully you enjoy watching these as I open these up. I really have written a lot of people in the last month or so these are kind of flowing in quite a bit. So we're just going to jump right into this and see who we got. All right, the first one is former All-Pro, San Francisco 49er, Bruce Gossett on 1, 2, 3, and a NFC scoring leaders makes 4. Bruce Gossett was the kicker for the 49ers for roughly 4 years. Prior to that, he played for the Los Angeles Rams, and that's the original Los Angeles Rams before they moved to St. Louis and back to LA. As a place kicker, he played in, 11 seasons total. He never missed a game and played in 154 consecutive contests during his career. That's pretty amazing. From 1964 to 1974, the guy never missed a game. He, of course, is a kicker, so that's pretty good. That tells me nobody injured him while he was doing his job, that's for sure. But he was an all-NFL pick in 1964, 1966. He was also the All-NFC in 1973. And as you can see, he finished 3rd in scoring in 1971 from that card. But former kicker and football great, Bruce Gossett. Very cool to add these to the collection. I recently picked the one on the top right up at that card show. I had the other ones in my collection already. So I decided to stick those in the mail, and Mr. Gossett luckily obliged and signed all 4. So thank you, Mr. Gossett. All right. This next one is postmarked from Minneapolis, Minnesota, which I think it's either going to be a Viking or a Minnesota Twin. So I sent out to a Twin lately, but I don't think he lived in Minnesota, so I'm leaning towards this is going to be a Viking. And this is indeed former Viking great Matt Blair on 1, 2, and 3. And as you can see, they're all the same card. Unfortunately, this was the only one that I had in my collection 3 times for whatever reason. But he gracefully signed all 3. Mr. Blair is probably one of the most underrated players on those Vikings teams. He played 11 seasons, all with the Minnesota Vikings. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler. He has been named to the 50 greatest Vikings of all time. He is a member of the Vikings Ring of Honor, and he played many years for the Vikings. I'm trying to see if I can find his career numbers. 12 seasons out of Iowa State. I did not know that. See if it says how many games he played in. Appeared in 2 Super Bowls, which obviously the Vikings did not win. Let's see. So it's 11 wins, 2 losses. He was a vital part of the Vikings' 76 seasons, which had a second in the NFL with least points allowed. Him along with Jeff Simeon, Wally Hilgenberger, and etc. I do not have how many games he played in. I can't quite put my finger on that. But long story short, Mr. Blair is probably one of the most underrated players not in the NFL Hall of Fame. He played during an era where the Vikings were successful, but they just couldn't get over that hump of winning that last Super Bowl, or winning a Super Bowl, I should say. They appeared in the Super Bowl a couple times in his career. He was a mainstay as a linebacker, like I said, with Jeff Simeon on that team. Many great players have played for the Vikings throughout the years. Matt Blair definitely is up there on the top of that list. Hopefully one day they'll recognize his talents and put him in the NFL Hall of Fame. I personally think he probably belongs there, but you have to look at some of the other players from that era that probably had a little stronger numbers than he did, and that's probably why he's not in. So thank you, Mr. Blair. Very happy to add all three of those to my collection, and you are forever thanked for signing those through the mail for me. All right, so this last one is postmarked from Houston, Texas. And I'm pretty sure I know who it is, and it is indeed former Houston Oiler Dan Pastorini on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So as you can see, some vintage Houston Oilers cards there from the 70s. Pastorini was a mainstay on the Oilers for many years. He was their quarterback. I'm going to pull up his stats here and share them with you in a second. Let's see how long he played there. He was with the Oilers from 71 to 79, so 8 seasons with the Oilers. Then he played with the Raiders and the Rams and the Eagles. And I was unaware that he actually is a Super Bowl champ. So he appeared in 1 Super Bowl, not with the Oilers. He also was a Pro Bowl selectee in 1975. I don't have any cards of him as a Raider, Ram, or Eagle, but I honestly didn't even realize he was on those teams. I'm guessing he was probably a backup at that point in his career. But more interesting enough, he was, the guy on the Houston Oilers from 71 to 79. So if you watched the Houston Oilers in the 1970s, you most likely know who this guy is. One of the all-time greatest Houston Oilers ever to play. Obviously, Warren Moon, the Hall of Famer, was a little more successful than he was. A few things to point out about Pastorini was he was drafted out of little-known Santa Clara University, which is not known for their football program. That's why I say little known. And he was drafted in the year of the quarterback, or I guess you would say the first year of the quarterback. That other draft with Marino, Kelly, etc. was pretty good too. But Jim Plunkett and Archie Manning were selected ahead of him in that draft. So that year had some very strong quarterbacks that we saw in that draft that year. So he was one of the first players to wear the flak jacket underneath his uniform to protect his lungs. He broke his ribs and punctured his lungs a few times during his career. So that tells me some people tackled him pretty good. A couple other things to know about him that I did not know was, he was actually traded for Kenny Stabler. Did not know that. So Stabler was traded to the Oilers, and Pastorini went to the Raiders and won the Super Bowl. I did not know that. So one more cool thing about Pastorini is he actually is a amateur racer as well. I did not know that. He's an actor, and he also is an amateur race car driver. He's raced hydroplanes, drag racing, and appeared in some movies with Lee Majors called Killer Fish was one of his movies. He was also on a show called Voyagers as a gladiator. So very cool information to know about Dan Pastorini. If you guys are faithful viewers, which I know you are, I may use that as a trivia question. Name the Houston Oilers quarterback who's also an amateur drag racer. So Stay tuned for future episodes of Through the Mail Thursdays. Thank you, Mr. Blair, Pastorini, and Mr. Gossett for signing. I look forward to your comments below. Thanks.